It's Deborah Byrne here from Deborah Byrne Psychology Services, known across social media as DBpsychology. So today I'm going to talk about this week's blog, which is all about Alzheimer's. And the reason I'm doing that is because Alzheimer's it forms the highest percentage of dementia patients. So dementia is the common term that's used. It's the common term that we used for neurocognitive disorder. So there's dementia. Most people get confused between the two. We have dementia, and it's the overall one, and then coming out of that are about 100 different conditions, and one of those, and it's the highest percentage, is Alzheimer. So it comes out of and is part of dementia. You've also got to remember too that it is an acquired brain injury. So I've talked about that before, and if you want to go and check out the blog on acquired brain injury, do check it out. It's very important. It has some interesting pieces of information and tips and more information that you might find useful when dealing with different professionals, and you're trying to explain it to somebody. The more information you have and the more you understand, the better you're able to do that. Now, Alzheimer's itself causes problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. And it goes through about 7 stages. Now, I'm not going to go through the 7 stages today. I go through them in quite a bit of detail, and you should be aware of them, because the earlier somebody gets an intervention, the better it is, and the better it is. The treatment can slow down the progress of the actual disease itself. So it slows it down, and that's what they're coming up with now, is a way to slow it down. It does develop itself over a longer period of time, longer than most people think. The early and first stage, most people won't have any symptoms. And if you had it, it would only be through a scan, a special type of scan, that they would be able to tell that you had, or you have the possibility that you have Alzheimer's. Now, in saying all that, don't rush out and think, oh, I have Alzheimer's, because I have some of the symptoms that I'm going to talk about this morning. There are medical conditions that can affect your memory, because most people think of Alzheimer's, they think of memory difficulties. There are conditions that can mimic that. And once that medical condition is fixed or treated, then the symptoms will go away. So just everybody hears the word dementia and Alzheimer's, and they get very, very frightened, and I can understand why. It can be very frightening for the family as well as the individual. But it isn't the end, and they are expanding the lifespan all the time. They've got it up to about 20 years now. As I said, if the earlier the treatment, the more they can slow it down. And remember too, Alzheimer's or dementia does not cause a death in and of itself. It's complications that arise towards the end that will cause the person to die. So some facts that you might want to think about. It's not a natural part of growing old. We can have problems with our memory as we go old, but we can usually, it's more a delay maybe in our memory, or we might forget, but then we'll go back and we'll remember again. The majority of people that are affected by Alzheimer's are in fact over 65, but be aware you can have early onset Alzheimer's, you can have early onset forms of dementia. As I said, it's an acquired brain injury, so there are other forms of acquired brain injury that you might need to look into as well, particularly if you're younger. And as I said, the lifespan is increasing, and the treatments every day are improving to the extent that they can slow it down incredibly. The symptoms, and I suppose the one I would pick out of all the symptoms that I'm going to go through today is the one about learning new information, because people have a problem with their memory in particular. And I know I said it's about thinking and behavior as well. But because of that, learning new information for somebody with Alzheimer's can be the biggest highlight, biggest difficulty. So that could be a very early warning sign for somebody. And the other early warning sign I would say to people is depression. If somebody has become depressed in old age, in over 65 in particular, then I would be looking, are there other symptoms there? Are there other symptoms there? Because again, depression can be one of the early stage symptoms that somebody can have. The symptoms themselves, you have a whole range of symptoms. Memory to the extent that it actually disrupts somebody's life. Confusion, so they're getting confused about not just people, but places and events that have happened, when they happened. If they've helped you do something and then they've forgotten they did it, they even did it, and you can know by the look on their face that they're shocked that they don't remember that they did it. That can be a very early symptom. Solving problems and planning, that can be in the early stages as well, because you'll see that things that they would have done in work, and we'll come to, familiar tasks again, that would be another problem. That would be another thing. So familiar tasks, this is what you're looking at. So this familiar tasks, solving problems and planning is an issue. So therefore, they'll forget things that they routinely do in work. There may be a delay, a longer delay, or they may completely have forgotten how to do them. So these are the things, not just in work, but at home as well. So you've got to think of what's the routine, what do they normally do, what's being forgotten, what can they no longer do. And I'm not just talking about the later stages when they have difficulty with dressing and washing and things like that. We can all have problems with balancing our bank account, but in terms of money, you can get a form of dyscalculia. I'm going to be talking about that later, and that can come with an acquired brain injury. So they can, of course, have problems paying bills, and you've got to watch for that. But it's simple addition, things that they would have known particularly if they're, they knew the times tables off. Older people, my generation and above, will know. I mean, we won't go into the fact that it was bet into us that we were, you had to know your times tables off by heart, and you had to be very quick about it. But we can be still very quick on doing maths in our head, and a lot of younger people are surprised at that, at how quick we are at we'll do it in our head, we'll top things up going around the supermarket and things like that. So things like that, the little things like that they're no longer able to do, or they're finding difficulty, particularly in the early stages, there'll be a difficulty in doing that, in adding up the bills like they used to do. So think about things that they could do before and that they might be finding difficulty in doing now. Disorientation is another symptom. So therefore, traveling, you're driving the car, traveling to routine places, in particular, normal travel routines, but also you've got to think of places, maybe they visited somewhere before and they can't remember it. Dates and time, seasons, the concept of seasons has gone. Forgetting people's birthdays, we can all do that, but forgetting regular dates, that they wouldn't normally do. You have to think about it, is it outside the norm? So what is normal for them? Trouble understanding visual images and spatial awareness. So that would be to do with driving. It can affect the driving. But also, watching a program on TV, things like that. Think about what you would use your visual awareness for. And I've talked about visual problems before. I've talked about that in a vlog before. So you might want to check that out, how somebody with a visual impairment, how that, and think about, add that then to your list of, okay, that can translate into an older person as well who acquires this visual impairment problem, because it's not just, we're not seeing with our eyes, it's the brain and how the brain processes what we're seeing. So they would start to have problems with that. Poor judgment, again, this leads them to being very vulnerable, and that would be, I suppose, the classic symptoms we would associate with a form of dementia or like Alzheimer's, because they've poor judgment, they've decreased judgment, So that, somebody ringing them up or coming to the door and offering them this great deal, and where before they would have turned it down, then they're handing over their bank account details to. But also cleaning themselves and their home. So the home, maybe somebody that once took great pride in their home and in decorating it and, keeping it clean, that's going out. It's slowly getting worse, and it's basically going out the window. Also there you can have misplaced things. So, they can misplace something, or they can fail to retrace their steps. So they just do not know where, they're very confused, do not know where they've put things. That can all tie into that. Changes in mood and personality, that would be a big one. Again, as I said, early symptoms can be depression, also anxiety, being fearful and suspicious. So if they're misplacing things, they could start to accuse you or somebody that's coming in to help them of stealing things. And we have to investigate, because we don't know whether it's true or whether and that person is taking advantage. Again, the poor judgment. We don't know whether our loved one is being taken advantage of, but we don't know either. Is this part of their condition, that it's their change in personality and change in their moods? So we have to investigate that. Withdrawal from doing their normal activities. So withdrawal from society, withdrawal from their friends, not wanting to go to the events that they'd usually have gone to. I'm thinking of the active over 55s, the active group there. If they were attending they do a lot of things for people over 55, a lot of social events. It's all about interacting. But again, if they were normally somebody who went golfing, and they no longer want to go golfing, or they've been putting it off, they kind of withdraw. It could happen very slowly and you may not notice it, but it could then happen that, they get very angry, and they because they can't do the task, whatever it is, the hobby or the interest, they can't really do it as well as they used to, and they start to get very frustrated with themselves. So think about that. Are they starting to withdraw from not wanting to go to a family event, not wanting to do things of a Sunday afternoon, things that they would normally do, not wanting to go shopping, not wanting to do things. So they can be withdrawn. Towards the end, the symptoms, of course, will be and can be speaking difficulties. They may stop speaking altogether. Most of them do, unfortunately. And also you'll see that's at the end, towards the end, they forget who you are. And that can be very upsetting. But it's also equally upsetting for you, because they're still speaking and they start to call you by their mother's name or an aunt's name. Their memories are their newer memories, if you like, or their memories from the last 10 or 15 years. So a grandchild mightn't be known, but the grandchild might remind them of a sister or something. So the whole idea there would be not to get upset while you're with them, to go with the flow, because it can cause, if you try and correct them, it will cause the problem to get worse, and they may become very angry and agitated as a result, because you're correcting them and saying, no, this is your grandchild, or this is your great grandchild even, or this is, I'm your daughter, I'm not your mother, things like that. You're upset and you're doing it from that point of view, but you have to see it from their point of view and realize they're not doing it deliberately. They just can't remember. They know you, but they can't place you. And then eventually, unfortunately, they won't know you at all. And that is a very unfortunate fact of this disease. They can have swallowing difficulties as well. And as I said, towards the end, it isn't the disease itself, Alzheimer's, that will cause death. It's the complications that will cause the death. And I hate finishing on such a dark note, because it isn't a nice illness. It really isn't. And as a carer, I would say to you, please, and I've talked about being a carer and looking after yourself. I have a blog there on it about looking after yourself after somebody has died. But even while they're still alive, you have to take care of yourself. you will burn out, you will suffer from exhaustion, and you will, if you do get to that level of burnout or exhaustion from caring from somebody, and it does take an awful toll on your physical but also your mental health to look after somebody else, you will get ill. You will become ill yourself. It is not unusual for somebody that has been looking after somebody else to become ill, to become, to develop depression themselves, or anxiety, or some other condition, not just a physical conditions, but you might develop mental health conditions. So prevention, as I always say, prevention is very, very important. And at the end of the blog, this week's blog, I talk about looking after yourself as a carer. So do check that out, and do check out the 7 stages. That is very important for people to understand the different stages and what to kind of expect at the different levels. So I'll leave it there, and you can check out the blog at www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com, and I will talk to you all next week. Monday's blog is on aggression in children. A lot of parents might be interested in doing that. It's a follow-up to the sibling rivalry. And I know I owe you one on sibling rivalry in adults. I know people are waiting for that one as well, but that'll be in the new year, I'm afraid. So I can only do so much at once. I can only do so many blogs. So and I plan out a year at a time. So I will see you all again next week, and thank you all very much to my regulars. And the blog's on Monday, and I'll see you next Saturday morning. Goodbye.